So it's been a while since we talked Cavendish Boulevard. In fact, I guess the last time would have been when we had the mayor on, who, of course, we play this clip from time to time, assures all of our listeners that, of course, Cavendish will get done. But that's a lot of talk. There has not been very much action. So today, a group called the Cavendish Caucus has gotten together, and is demanding that this actually happen, and actually want to make this a prerequisite of anything else happening at the Hippodrome Namur project. Dida Berku is a Côte-Saint-Luc councillor, one of the people as part of the Cavendish Caucus. She is on the line. Dida, thank you for being here. Let me begin by asking, first of all, the Cavendish Caucus. I know we spoke to Alan D'Souza about this issue before, so who are you all getting together on this, and what are you asking for?
Right. So the Cavendish Caucus is made up of all levels of government, the elected officials, basically from the municipal, provincial, and federal levels. And we meet and we discuss this issue. And the last meeting we had was with Minister Fraser, who is the Minister for Housing, and who was at the press conference with Valérie Plante and the Minister from Quebec, Duranceau, in April. And they announced that they were going to give $2 million from each level of government for feasibility studies, which is fine. But we want those feasibility studies, and any further mandate or any further subsidies that are given should be contingent on respecting the original agreement.
So let's discuss that original agreement, as you describe it, would have said, or said what?
The original agreement is an agreement between the Quebec government and the City of Montreal, signed in 2017, just before the election of Valérie Plante, so it was under Denis Coderre, and it was negotiated specifically to grant the Hippodrome land to the City of Montreal for $1 and valuable consideration. And there was one condition, and that condition was that the City of Montreal undertakes to build Cavendish.
All right, which sounded great at the time. I remember this back in 2017. I remember Denis Coderre actually making an issue of this, say it's going to get done. It's 7 years later, nothing has been done. And I want to point something out that you said. I think people may have misunderstood this. In talking to Andrew Lutfi, who's a developer, about this project, he says this $2 million, you mentioned Sean Fraser and the federal government committing $2 million, that's not to do anything other than continue to produce a feasibility study. It's not about construction or anything else. It's basically money for a plan. So what are you asking for here differently from what's already been asked up until now?
What we're saying is that if they're considering subsidizing the housing, because there is an urgent housing crisis and we all are in favor of the housing, and it's because we're in favor of housing that we're going to insist on a proper transit plan that's going to disengorge, that's going to, relieve the congestion around the Décarie-Cavendish area, because I don't have to tell your listeners, it's a nightmare. And so you cannot put another 20,000 residents in that mix without having a proper transit plan. And this follows up basically on what the Business Alliance, the Cavendish Business Alliance said in the month of May. And you're talking all the major business developers and owners of the property around the Décarie and around Namur de la Savane and the Hippodrome and all that whole area. They all say the same thing. I mean, you've got to relieve the congestion that's existing now, and you've got to create a proper transit plan in order to build new housing.
So you want this to be now completed, as I said off the top, as a prerequisite to doing anything at Hippodrome Namur. The question...
Well, it's been like that since day one. And Sean Fraser himself came to the FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities meeting in Calgary 2 weeks ago, and said, we're going to finance housing with transit. Every elected official, this is going to become an election issue. This is going to become an election issue at every single level, because you cannot finance housing without proper transit. And Mayor Plante says it herself. She says herself, well, we're not going to have another 20,000 cars. No, but where are you going to get the transit if you don't do it simultaneously, if you don't do it together? You can't just build the housing. And the transit plan that they're proposing right now doesn't even mention it.
Yeah.
Doesn't even go to Cavendish.
Right.
We
That,
have
that
our
transit
technical-
plan concerns Jean Talon and taking a tram through that
It's
development and going
focused-
east, right?
Right. It's focused on Jean Talon. And then, of course, we had, some technical meetings of the technical committees, and they're giving us all kinds of alternative routes, which I'm not at liberty to reveal at this point, but which actually they have not thought through, which have not
that's
been
good to hear.
properly investigated.
Yeah, and which don't include Cavendish, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you have an issue that's been basically the same forever, and I understand you're now getting together with more people to try to press the city. City had a plan. It seems to me I remember hearing or seeing a plan that the city had put together. It's going back a couple of years ago. That would have,
2022.
that would have
Yes.
taken Cavendish, and it had a median on it and a bike lane and a bus lane.
Yes.
Is that where we're picking up from?
Absolutely. That's called the mobility corridor, to give it a fancy name.
Okay.
So it's one lane of traffic, one lane of public transit, one lane of bicycles. That's fine. We all agreed. Reluctantly, but we said, okay, that's what you want to do? Go for it. And they filed it, and it was perfectly on track until they pulled the plug again. So they did it in 2022. They filed it with the Minister of the Environment. They wanted to go to the BAP, and then they've suddenly, for no good reason, other than now suddenly they prefer Jean Talon, because we haven't seen any reason. There's no argument that's been made that, well, it's too expensive or it's too this or it's too that. There's nothing on the table except this will that suddenly this desire, now the whole focus is on Jean Talon.
They stuck it on the back shelf, and they're not going to come back to it unless they're forced to. Why do you even think this will make a difference at all?
Look, we have to try, because I don't think that the Hippodrome project can. And I agree with Lefty, and I heard your chat with him, and he was. I think he was right on. He says you cannot build the Cavendish you can't build the Hippodrome. Sorry, without having Cavendish.
Yeah.
And I don't think the residents and the electors and the whole so the public is going to accept that public money be funded into the Hippodrome without Cavendish. This is contrary to everything that they've said to date. So we're going to just keep pushing on that theme.
Well,
we have to keep going.
I wish you luck. Brian, you know what the mayor said, right? I play this every time we bring this up. Dida, you've heard this before, but I'm going to play it again. People need to hear this, so here you go.
We're doing Cavendish for sure.
But she never said when. She never said when. Dida, I wish you luck. And I think for all the people who live around that area, the same thing. It's an absolute bottleneck there at the best of times. If we're going to develop Hippodrome Namur, it absolutely has to be with Cavendish. I'm not sure I understand why the city keeps shelving this project or what intent they may have in doing so, but I do hope it moves forward. I wish you luck, as I said. Thanks so much.